Let's roll. Every day.
Well, he is trying to make this You got barbecue back. I'm a man. I'm 40. You can't believe what just happened.
Not conferences, different leagues.
It got you again, didn't it? You looked at week 2 slate and thought to yourself, there's no way this week is worth a hoo-ha. Well, boy, I have some grand news for you. It's always the weakest weeks on paper that wound up being more exciting than getting a titty pic from your crush. 'Tis the glory of these games, as the only constant in the college football world, which I'm sure you know all too well, is chaos. So let's lock in for yet another week. Friday night, we were once again introduced to a program too bad to be a contender, but too good to be laughed at for being terrible. Welcome to the pit of eternal Louisville purgatory. This edition stars USC transfer Miller Moss, a quarterback of which produced on a status befitting of the Louisville program. Average. As average as you could possibly get. Despite the play on the field, it was more than enough to stop a self-mutilating team like James Madison. The quarterback hokey pokey seems like an elite concept when you think about what it would be like with two great quarterbacks at the helm. The concept becomes flawed at the bare minimum once you realize that these quarterbacks offered less talent than even Miller Moss. Once Alonzo Barnett even thought about getting some sort of stride on the field, it was followed by his ass being thrown out from Matthew Sluka doing the Arch Manning routine of playing running back. Sluka is used to conning football programs into his own hype, so this fits all too well. The constant switcheroo at the quarterback position was about as goofy as you'd imagine. Even the opposing teams were confused by whatever the hell this was. This is the type of shit you do against D2 schools when you're up by 60, not against a Power 4 school actively beating you. While their efforts were great up front defensively, they were negated by this move, plus the lack of any sort of spark. Louisville, on the other hand, was able to hit these sparks when desperately needed. Thus, while they certainly tried to get North Carolina, the Cardinals survive another day in perfect time for their bye week. Normally, this would be a detriment to have it this early, but after that performance, they've got some shit to work out so they can spend this week doing so. James Madison could have easily won this game if they actually chose a fucking quarterback instead of sending everyone out there. If Bob Chesney can throw out that idea for next week, maybe the Boca Raton Bowl will give you a call. We didn't have much hope for you anyway, but even in your brightest moment, that of course being the month of September, you're as enjoyable to watch as paint dry. Yes, it may be to Notre Dame's father-in-law coming off the 1-year anniversary of said funny, but that doesn't take away from your lackluster performance, especially since NIU's team this year is basically completely brand new. 16 starters from the previous season stolen by the talent fee, and behind the pocket is a walk-on entering his 3rd ever start. While Thomas Hammock stuck around, the lack of material around him did him no favors trying to pull off the upset. They lost anything that made them more than a tickling feather in the wind. Whatever was threatening about this team is over with Texas Tech. Thus, while NIU's offense refused to exist, the Turtles managed to find a guy who can actually throw the football. True freshman Malik Washington does something we rarely see in Maryland quarterbacks and can actually sling the pigskin for more than 2-yard out routes and screens. However, constant red zone aneurysms kept him from being able to put the game away. It wasn't that NIU would keep struggling, but rather the Turtles were just slow at putting them down. Suppose that's fitting. Just as a tortoise would, they churned the clock and won by eliminating anything the opposition tried to do. Any football week where Maryland doesn't flat out embarrass themselves counts as a massive win. They got all the potential in the world with Washington at the helm, which will be nice to watch before they inevitably fall apart as soon as September ends. Which to you is more important to finance, Washington's NIL budget or Mike Locksley's buyout? A question nobody has an answer to. What a plot twist this is. Illinois and Duke in a big sports game that isn't basketball. Welcome to the current year, as I say. The winner of this matchup is a potential playoff sneak, and the pressure that the Illini are facing to fulfill that little number next to their name grows stronger with each consecutive win. They've taken a giant beating in the secondary through the injury bug. Luckily for them, while they're facing a team with no offensive line to block their pass rush, they hardly need any sort of secondary. For whatever reason, Duke fans got angry at me for pointing out that Darian Minto was not the solution. After watching that game, I'd be willing to bet you agree with me now. Unless you've got someone like Jaden Daniels in the backfield, you're not passing well when you have 0.5 seconds to look for an open receiver. He had 300 yards through the air and kept them in the game through the first half. But when you spend the entire game farting the ball and giving it back to Illinois, that of which resulting in a 5-0 turnover advantage, you best bet Burt Bielema would take advantage of it. That of which he did. Once the iron got hot, it reached volcanic levels of which the Blue Devils had no response other than pressuring Luke Altmaier. But just as his coach has been doing, he's undergone his own redemption arc. A lineman to the face won't deter him. By the 4th quarter, the game was blown wide open and Duke was eviscerated into November again. Those overrated chants by the 30 fans that showed up might have been onto something after all. A result about as Manny Diaz as you can get. The Fighting Illini now really find pressure getting to them starting this week as they advance into the top 10 for the first time in over 20 years. As the Bielema revenge arc continues, I only pray the Gamecocks do their part too so we can see you all in a WWE playoff matchup. As every year we have Christmas and Halloween during the second half of the year, the same can be said for the National Pick the Under Day in the form of the Cy-Hawk Spectacular. The game quite literally couldn't have started out in a better format, as Iowa started the game with a 3-and-out in the opening series. Lord almighty, we're so back. The Hawkeyes figured over the offseason that with Mark Gronowski, that all their offensive woes would be solved. It took all of 10 minutes against the Cyclones for them to realize that there are 10 other personnel in the offense and they're all worthless. They have receivers for decoration. Last year's Penn State had more of a wide receiver room than they do, and they never even used them. Even with the entire team for Iowa State injured, hurt, or coming off a hangnail, this still wasn't enough for the Hawk Tuas to find any sort of offensive gain. It's all a gigantic troll job because no matter who's there or what they're up against, Iowa always finds a way to consistently produce no offense. Hell, the game you watched here was closer to their version of a shootout. As you'd expect, the Hawk offense did their job in keeping Rocco Purdy in check once again. Iowa State was getting beat on the line, but stayed in it because their opposition was run by a walking retirement home. I think we all know how, but this appears to be exactly the same as the previous season. Like, exactly the same. So much so that it ends the same way too. Just as he did before, the legend of Jack Tress's own Kyle Conradi has returned to do that thing once again.
Clean snap, good hold. Good!
So does this ever get tiring for y'all? Once again, Iowa loses a football game to their rival due to piss-poor offense. They have time left, but unless they've got 10 minutes to go down the field, they ain't going down the field. You can only promise change so many times. How does Kirk Ferentz keep getting away with this? As ugly as that was, Matt Campbell keeps Iowa State fans eating good before getting into the rest of conference play. Being highly ranked now, you've got a target on your back as one of the front runners, so keep an eye out for Kansas. Imagine a drug addict who takes literal gallons of LSD suddenly stopping one day. Said withdrawal equates to how badly Dave Aranda and his coaching staff need this win against SMU on the road. As I said that, Jackson Arnold just ran for another 10 yards. With Tyler Van Dyke out due to exploded knees and RJ Maryland playing hurt for a similar reason, the Pony Express will have to look for alternative sources to throw to. Kevin Jennings and TJ Harden were still around, so the offense was still offensing for them. However, most, if not all, offenses right now pale to the might of the Sawyer Robinson airball. He lit the SMU secondary up and then some with almost 500 yards through the air. The backfield looked as unprepared as the ref ball cam on the CW, or just CW broadcasting in general because there's better video production on PronHub. Both sides took turns brutalizing their defense in a game of who can have the last laugh. The answer came when the Horsies took a 2-score lead with 5 minutes left to go. Or so we thought, as Robinson's ability to airball turned the game around in their favor in a heartbeat. Not to mention that Aranda is quite literally balancing his job on the result of this game. The comeback by the Bears set the game up for another edition of Chaos Overtime. With the Bears as hot as they are, now would be a really bad time to forget how to score yourself. Really, really bad.
Kick is up, looks like it's going to be right.
Well, from this result, it's safe to say the football gods aren't Methodist. There's still a lot of time, but it appears to most of the college football world that SMU has expectedly regressed following a phenomenal 2024 season. While they won't fall to the days of the death penalty, they won't be what they were previously. To add insult to injury, they haven't beat Baylor since said death penalty. Let that fact sink in as the Big Bang Theory comes on in the CW. Bazinga! There's a lot of things about this game that confuse me. The game apparently isn't recognized as a conference game despite both teams being from the ACC. Chandler Morris is battling a bad knee and they've still got him out there swinging the ball. Above all else, Dave Dorian's offense is not optional. It's plot twist after plot twist. Before you know it, you're going to tell me that coaches from the past going into their second tenure at the same school don't pan out in any good way. Wow, that'd be crazy. Twist aside, despite being a game between two tank conference dumpster fires trying to get rid of their coach, this happened to be an elite game somehow. By elite, I mean somehow watchable for anyone not named Sicko. Both offenses carried a run game and a pass duo that beat down the defense drive by drive. It was seemingly identical to Baylor and SMU's face-off from two teams you never expect to see it from. Virginia was converting third downs, NC State's offensive line actually learned how to block, and Dave Dorian was even going for it on fourth down. In his own territory, no less. Well, that's pretty stupid, actually. While it's near impossible to take anything from this game other than that both teams are likely struggling to make a bowl game, it was enjoyable football between them for the first time in a while. But as NC State isn't allowed to be good, they do have the football gods' good graces of being average in given intervals, a narrative of which reared its ugly head in the final minutes of the ball game. The Cavs drove down the field, got into the red zone, and...
On the clock, Chandler Morris scrambling right, floats
What
one
the
in the
hell is even that?
Interception!
Morris throws a dime straight into the hands of NC State. Give that man a big NIL package in the offseason. Virginia needs all the receivers they can get. It's a result like this that can potentially seal the fate of both programs at once. Tony Elliott is all the more closer to the funny sound effect being thrown down, and NC State is all the more closer to another announcement about the return of Dorian in 2026. You know as well as I do that can and very well may happen. And this is exactly why I don't have any sort of hope in my Vols. Last week I chopped up the defense's performance against this offense as the Orange still having a great offense that'll be tough to stop for anyone. Now here we are in the very next week, and here's UConn having very little trouble shutting them down. As sick as I feel, I can't even imagine the disgust the peeling Orange fans feel right now, because what the absolute shit was this? I don't care if the Huskies won 9 games last season, that was last year. The only blessing about this game for the Orangemen was that the game was on streaming only and wasn't available on network television. At the rate this game went, they'd be better off doing this for every Syracuse game. From this result, I'd say it's safe to say that rather than being good or bad, they're more bipolar. Some drives it look like they're fresh off of beating Miami, and then others they look like they're about to lose to Stanford again. There's no telling what type of Steve Angeli-Bean and company you're going to get on any given drive. In fact, they were playing behind the entire game. Jim Mora and the Huskies actually dominated the scoreboard through the entire game up until the fourth quarter. They kind of had this game won pending they did the stupid, and guess what? They did all kinds of stupid. Playing not to lose is reserved for the favored team, not for the underdog. This plus Jeff Ignato throwing to the air or a receiver is going to drop it anyway, resulted in Q's eventually getting their shit together and dragging the game into overtime. It's all the time needed for ref ball to come save you in the end with a questionable touchdown that didn't even get reviewed. Followed by, as you would guess, UConn Huskies football in the clutch.
UConn needs the 2-yard line to extend the game. Finiano to the end zone. Incomplete. Syracuse wins. It's Delorier again.
Yeah, that doesn't exist in any capacity. Credit to where it's due, though, for them to have a pulse in football again, as we can remember a time when they were another Kent State. For Q's, if you need Angeli-Bean to throw for 400 yards to have a chance of winning, that's a major concern. I'm using my administrative power of which games I choose as an opportunity to say fuck you, and fuck you again. You know what you're doing, you absolutely know what you're doing. Not everyone does, but I know better. If you've seen what Georgia has done for years on end, you'd understand where I'm coming from. Firstly, Georgia did indeed play like absolute shit in this game. This is no doubt the weakest the Georgia offense has looked in the Kirby Smart era, which is saying a lot. Gunnar Stockton is forced by Mike Bobo is living completely off the inside runs and screens. Ironically, close to someone else I know. The defense did what they always do and talent feed their way to stopping Austin Peay without even trying to do anything. But the offense was MIA for entire points in the game. It was such a disaster that Georgia fans are back to claiming that Kirby Smart is hiding the offense again. It's like they just didn't care about the game at all. I know it's an FCS game that you can win in your sleep, but it's a game all the same. Glory be thee to the SEC where you can win these games by simply existing. It looked less like they were trying to win the game and more like they were just running a scrimmage. All that to say, I'm not buying into any of the lies here. You did this shit to Kent State back in 2022 and then went on to obliterate every ranked opponent on your schedule. With game day coming to Knoxville and the spread in favor of the Dogs declining at an alarming rate, I'm all too ready to get hurt by my arch nemesis Mickey Mouse again. Get comfortable with Stockton, everybody. We all know Kirby ain't putting anyone else on the field next week. You're f***ed. Everything you had is now f***ed too. I tried as much as I could over the offseason to gas you up in some type of comeback, but you're likely to do worse than you did last year. This was going to be a lopsided result no matter what expectations you have for the Cowboys, but this went way further than that. This is so gruesome I don't even know if it could be aired on TV. Hell, my video might get taken down in the guidelines of showing graphic violence. This single loss takes the program so far back, they might as well devolve back into Oklahoma A&M. This shit stain started for you well before the game even began. Haas Henji, one of the only pieces of spotlight you had in the previous 2 seasons, got injury bugged and is now out with a broken foot. But if you thought you stood more of a chance at full capacity, remember that Oregon is without Evan Stewart and they still did all of this to you. You got ran off the field in every capacity. The offense was chocolate syrup from the toilet, the defense got Bonnie Blued, and even when the Ducks installed the mercy rule, they still outscored the entirety of your team. Oregon could have switched uniforms mid-game and they still would have blown you out. Somehow an even easier debut for Dante Moore than the previous game he played. And probably the biggest cherry on the shit Sunday for the broken Cowboys was that Oregon scored exactly 69 points. That's not even insult to injury, that's lighting a fire to a family tree. What's crazy is that they could have easily run it up further. Just because Mike Gundy is a staple of the college football world doesn't make him a good coach today. Any head coach who puts their defensive hopes and dreams on Todd Grantham is a dead career walking. Until further notice, the Big 12 will be known as the Chaos/Oklahoma State Conference. The most chaos happening for them is whatever the hell Gundy's going to say in the press conference. One thing's for sure though, the brain-eating amoeba and Stillwater are eating good this year. Well, looks like you weren't motivated enough, huh, Mark Stoops? You certainly tried to save your spot with Kentucky for yet another season, but unfortunately, lack of any sort of quarterback development wound up being your downfall. Despite the willingness from Ole Miss to give you the game, you were having none of it. Kentucky football did what Kentucky football does best and outshitted the shitters. It was about as you would expect. Kentucky's line up front was more than enough to keep Austin Simmons and the rest of the team at bay. Kawan Lacey went through them, but not enough for the Land Sharks to relentlessly score. The Wildcats, through turnovers, could have gotten the jump on them had they actually taken advantage of the opportunities. As per the usual though, bad discipline, Zach Calzone having the clutch bone of a jellyfish, and overtly aggressive fourth down attempts all contribute to the eventual trademark collapse. This might have done you some good, as a win here all but guarantees another contract extension in a race for Stoops. The well of expectations is always so low for Kentucky because the administration has their eyes completely on basketball the entire time. It's been over a year since they last won an SEC road game, and it'll likely be longer before they actually get one. The only thing coming to an end in the future is either a long overdue tenure of Stoops or the sanity of the Wildcat fans who endure it. Or maybe they'll bring Cutter Boley back. Who knows? Ole Miss may have gotten vengeance, but fans shouldn't be celebrating the win, as the only reason they didn't walk away with a loss is due to Kentucky football being Kentucky football. They too suffered from bad quarterback play and penalties. Austin Simmons got it together at some point towards the end, so if you can play like that for most of the season, you should be fine. But do you trust anyone on Ole Miss to stay consistent? I mean, do you? A long-awaited rivalry rekindled after many years is once again being resurfaced. The border war between two schools that I'm surprised hate each other this much. Not because they didn't know they were rivals, but rather them having passionate fan bases enough to care for them. But you know who cares about football again? Kansas. They punched Mizzou in the mouth early on and looked like they would take complete control of the ballgame. However, just as quickly as they jumped on the Tigers, Bo Pribula and Ahmad Hardy's continuous assault got them back into control. I'm not sure what changed between his time at Penn State and now, but Pribula did well to take after Sam Horn. He looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the conference going up against the Jayhawk defense. Though, anyone they put up against the Jayhawk defense always ended with three guys trying to tackle one. They may have life again, but they are still Kansas and compare none to the likes of the different leagues principal. Jalen Daniels did his part in making plays out of thin air and keeping Kansas in the game, but without a defense to clutch up, he was playing catch up for the rest of the brawl. So despite the sweat they endured through the first half, the Tigers clutch up for the SEC and send their rival home with an L once again. For the sake of the next time you play them, try to have some sort of interest in running the football. You'll get them at some point soon. It's only been 6,000 days or so. From the depths of the group of five, two potential contenders for the playoff spot face off in another big-time rivalry we call the Battle of I-35. I'm imagining bumper-to-bumper traffic whilst thinking about this rivalry. 45,000 in attendance, of which would be a new record for UCLA, as this is a game both programs take very seriously. You can tell from the way the two offenses keep finding ways to subdue each other's defense. Freshman Brad Jackson, despite not many knowing his name, put it on the map with this performance. He continuously shredded the UTSA secondary and they had no answers for it. He'd pass for a first down, run for a first down, pass, run, pass, run, pass, run, SpongeBob. The Roadrunners didn't take the abuse without retaliation though. Owen McCown did just about the same in response to the assault, and with the threat of Robert Henry in the mix, it was a dangerous and chaotic duo that was near impossible to shut down. In a war like this where the only thing stopping them is the clock, the only thing that's left to rely on is one simple defensive stop. Despite the effort from UTSA to keep the iron hot, they eventually lost their flame and became a victim to one of the quickest rebuilds we've ever seen. It was a good fight all the same, but only one can win. The Roadrunners are likely in good hands if they can find some sort of defense somewhere along the way. As for the Bobcats, they've set up for a good run before their departure to the Pac-12. Maybe that conference got a good one. Can you believe they put this shit on ESPN Plus when we had to endure the likes of Oklahoma versus Michigan?
The expectation is greater than the appreciation.
Yeah, I'd figured I'd start with that quote off the bat. We still don't know what it means, but it makes just as much sense as what happened to you on the field. You better be thankful for the talent fee. Had Dabo not invested in the transfer portal over the offseason this time, this result very well could have ended in complete humiliation. This is still humiliation either way, but only around 50%. Far more effort than the entire team gave on the field. And no, this is not an excuse. This is less of a football game and more of an attempted circus act. Several unexplainable turnovers, 100 penalties, some of which resulted in ejection, Cade Klubnik unable to stay consistent if his life depended on it, and of course, it wouldn't be complete without Dabo faking a field goal at the worst time possible. Everything about this game defined the word Clemsoning, with the exception of the scoreboard. I don't get why Garrett Riley has been hyped up as this elite offensive mind when he outright refuses to have any sort of offensive creativity. Most games I've seen under his offense have shades of DJ Ukulele. With the first and second half being polar opposites, you have to wonder if anything other than Dabo likely putting a fire under someone's hypothetical ass happened. They do prevail, but with Florida State and Mario Cristobal somehow doing something now, Tank Conference might be looking to dethrone you. Plus, you gotta face the possible contender Georgia Tech this weekend at Bobby Dodd. Just survive and thrive. That's the name of the game. Makes me think that they control the weather, as the lightning delay they had against Troy coincided with actual complete embarrassments that took the trolling off of them. Almost hell. West Virginia. Actually, I take that back. It's just complete hell now. You gotta give credit to Rich Rod for at least being consistent. He ended his last tenure in the Power 4 with a complete failure, and he wasted absolutely no time at all maintaining that. His only offense shown on the field was the offense the fans took in realizing they rehired a fraud. The line up front was better not being there at all, as all they did was contribute to Nico Marchio getting sacked again. This Nico somehow had a worse overall performance than the other one. How is that even possible? You had College game day in the palm of your hand, and all you had to do was avoid losing to the MAC. But just like the team you face upcoming, avoiding humiliation from that conference is just a task too tough for you to handle. The depths of the program are getting deeper somehow, when some of you are still thinking that you should be trusting the climb. No doubt Parker Navarro and Ohio are a force to be reckoned with, as proven by their squabble with Rutgers, but any result that you don't come out on top proves that you can always get worse in the Frisco Bowl. Hell, this was one of Navarro's worst performances we've ever seen. He kept giving you chances to get it together and do something, but all you wanted to do was reminisce on the days of Dana Holgerson. Having an obsession with nostalgia has proven so far to be your downfall, and you're not even in conference play yet. At this point, I think we just have confirmation that anything with Virginia in it is a bad spot for football. With a result like this, it comes as no surprise, but to my Mountaineer faithful, you have been gifted Clown of the... Yeah, you had a feeling I was going to do that, didn't you? You absolute failure. You had the sources, you had the personnel, you had every injury excuse you could possibly ever muster up, and yet somehow, someway, here we are once again watching Florida fail at the game of football. Seems at this rate, that's been the entire era of Billy Napier, a complete failure of an administration. Yes, it's true South Florida is the clear frontrunner of the G5 playoff contenders. They've got a complete team with Byron Brown leading the way, but Florida has a supposed Heisman contender in DJ Lagway. They have a defense now. They have a roster capable of competing in the conference again. What a load of gator skin bullshit. You scaly bastards managed to hoodwink the fans and bamboozle the analysts. But anyone who knew better understood that you're still Florida, and Billy Napier is still your coach. Anything even close to creative was a struggle for the coaching staff. And then after falling apart on one drive due to offensive inactivity, they came out the next and did the exact same thing. The talent feed defense was the only thing that kept them in for the duration of the shitfest. So after week drive after week drive, with time winding down for South Florida, they found themselves in a peculiar position. Drive down the entire length of the field to kick a game-winning field goal. All Florida has to do is lock down one last time and prevent something incredibly stupid happening. You know, like something on the level of Marco Wilson throwing a shoe. Incredible. Truly groundbreaking cinema here. You let the Bulls drive the whole length down the field on top of a player spitting on another player, with several missed tackles and several timeouts not used until the Bulls actually drove the length of the field. The talent feed doesn't have a 100% success rate after all. Even it can't save you from this.
Dramatic up for the win, and there it is!
Stand proud, Florida. Despite losing this game, you shouldn't have come close to losing. The rest of your schedule is very manageable. You only have half of the top 15 to play. Lol. Lamau even. You deserve this. You deserve this so much after that offseason parade you had for DJ Wrongway. As great as he is, he's not the solution to a 4-year-long problem you have on the sidelines. USF at this point is the G5 spot locked in for the playoffs. They're basically in, pending a 2024 Pitt collapse, of course. The Bulls are real shit. Call it like it is. Miami needs to be best prepared. I think at this this point, it's safe to say you've dug your own grave. You have no choice now but to run the gauntlet completely in order to keep your contract afloat. You don't have any excuses like Rich Rod does. DJ 20 below the speed limit was fully healthy in this game, and you still managed to find a way to piss the talent away. Taking losses like this in your 4th year as a coach in an SEC program is something you can only come back from with a generational comeback. And Billy Napier is no Marcus Freeman. The chaos even extends beyond the game itself, as now you've got former players speaking up against your regime. Now solidified as one of the bottom feeders of the conference and maximum the 4th best team in the state of Florida, without the support of the fans, I feel it's only a matter of time before you're forced to pack your bags for the Sun Belt. You're not fit for this job, Billy. However, you are fit for Clown of the Week. I've lost count of how many times you've won this award. The worst reality for the Gator fans is no matter what happens going forward, Scott Strickland is still your athletic director. Hard to say for certain, but even though we are only 2 weeks through the season, it appears to anyone with a pair of eyes that South Florida's run to the G5 playoff spot is getting easier with each game. They're doing the entire football division like Clemson wishes they could do to the ACC. While the Green Wave did prevail, they went through a significant struggle fest to pull it out. When you have a team that plays down to competition versus an underdog that plays above their own pay grade, more often than not, it results in lots of tomfoolery. It's either that or South Alabama is a whole lot better than Northwestern. Tulane did just enough to stay in it and sort of just existed through it. Another mediocre performance from Retzlaff had me second guessing just how much of an impact he's made to the offense. Granted, his dual threat power gave way to the Green Wave to be bailed out of a lot of their incompetence. Bishop Davenport did just about everything he could to prevent South Alabama from falling apart, but Tulane's defense held strong for just enough time to survive and thrive for another week. They keep their playoff hopes alive if only by a thread. But there's some clear issues on both sides of the football that need to be adapted if they want to have an actual shot of making it to the big dance. Especially now that Ole Miss is coming up shortly. Long live Tulane! Just as a side note, what the fuck was that ESPN Plus coverage? A group of sick babies would have done a better job on that broadcast. You do realize Oklahoma State exists, right? You don't need to tank for the sake of becoming the whipping boy of the Big 12. Seems like you don't know that, though. If there's any moral to the story we're experiencing with Kansas State, it's to never go play a football game in Ireland and lose. Just like Nebraska did a couple of years ago, they lost the game, came home to a sweat match against North Dakota, and now they've gotten fully exposed against a heavy underdog G5 school at home. Struggling to shut down a version of the triple option that even Tarleton State could stop sets up so many alarms in Manhattan that you'd think the apocalypse was happening. I mean, it is in a way. Kansas State could be trending right back towards their shitty historical selves with performances like these. The whole point of playing Army is that you're playing them. If you get into a scenario where they're playing you lose every time. The Black Knights did just about that by refusing to throw the ball and maintaining possession of it for the full 60 minutes. Even shit as simple as the Cal Helms quarterback draw was something the Wildcats defense struggled to do anything against. Army's offense was so convoluted that their wide receiver was their best quarterback and their quarterback was their best running back, and he ran it 40 fucking times. I wouldn't be surprised if Avery Johnson's entire family lineage was hosting a free-for-all after seeing that. It's a messy situation all around for Kansas State, something that'll only be fixed by the usual beatdown against the Jayhawks, and if you can't even pull that feat off, you'll just need to go ahead and sim to next season. At least you respect the military. A dangerous position Arizona State has found themselves in. Without Cam Skibbity, they'll have to find a new offensive identity against the Cowbell College at the Cowbell College. No matter how much prep time you have for an environment like that, there's nothing you can actually do to prepare for its wrath, especially now that Mississippi State has some sort of pulse in the sport again. Jeff Lebby rebuilt the roster from the ground up, and it showed in what we saw on the field. While the Sun Devils did have the 1-2 punch in the backfield, that's about all they had. Sam Levitt's passing game was the equivalent of taking the pitchfork and stabbing himself with it on every pass. They really needed him to take the jump forward without the cushion of the backfield, and that never came. The Cowbells just rattled him the whole way. State's issue was quite literally vice versa. Blake Shapen shredded the Arizona State secondary, which made the run game completely obsolete, and eventually they just flat out abandoned it. Having the home field definitely helped them in this matchup, and it kept the Sun Devils away from scoring for most of it. It's almost like they were waiting to get exposed, but that day never came. Now that they're having to drive the field with less than a minute left, the Bulldogs would have to pull off a miracle, or the other team would have to blitz like complete dumbasses in order to fall for the... What? They're doing it again! How do you do that again? It's been less than 8 months. You blew it against Texas! What are you doing? How did you blow it again? How? Why? Why are you blitzing on the final play of the game, you absolute morons? How? How did they do it again? How did they keep doing this? Why do you not learn from your mistakes? You just got past this. Oh my goodness, bro. Glory be thee to the SEC, I guess. Arizona State can't figure out how to play friggin' defense. Game day selection was in the form of two teams that we're very thankful didn't face off last season. Michigan and Oklahoma are two teams that spent the entire offseason trying to find a way to maybe get a first down. While they did pick up Justice Haynes through the portal, the Wolverines' hopes and dreams would be on true freshman Bryce Underwood. While he's no doubt got the talent on his side, what he doesn't have is experience. This resulted in what about you'd expect. When you send a true freshman to lead the team into an extremely hostile environment led by a veteran quarterback in John Mateer, it ends with the freshmen usually falling flat on their face. Underwood completed a whopping 4 passes in the second half versus the Oklahoma Iron Curtain. The Brent Venables defense came through in the clutch as it has done many times before. Even when the Wolverines had a big play, it was followed by 15 minutes of gone. It was a complete role reversal of what Arch Manning had to go through in Columbus, as the freshman is sent down south to be mauled by the different leagues principle this time. Two overly conservative offenses like these caused the game to end up coming down to a defensive effort, and as said previously, hard to do much against the might of the Brent Venables line, especially when Michigan struggled to ever even get the ball back. Venables basically said they can't score offensive points if they can't play offense. They may have not had the best offensive performance in return because, well, they actually have an offense now, so baby steps. The Wolverines still suffer from overly conservative play calling and a line that spends 60 minutes eating dirt. The offense as a whole has a show cause too. If Tommy Castellanos can trash talk for the entire offseason and back it up, you'd best be willing to bet the same can be said for Diego Manziel. As per the usual Virginia Tech, the intro was fire, and as the fire burned, it slowly but surely vanished as the hours progressed. A 10-0 start apparently fired up everyone but the defense, as once they found themselves in a threatening position, Pavia immediately answered and the rest is history. It looked like it could have been a competitive brawl the whole way, but as is common with Brent Pry, 0 adjustments after the half led to Vandy just abusing the offense for the Turkeys. Sam Seifkis has moments that show potential as a coordinator, followed by the defense doing like Maryland after September and completely falling apart. Tech put themselves into a position to win this game, just as South Carolina last week, but once again they fell down the stairs and broke their expectations again. Every week that goes by, it makes the late 2000s look much more farther away. Hokie Nation has reached an area close to rock bottom. When you're in a scenario where you get shut out in the second half by Vandy at home, it might be time to hang it up. The only thing you have going for you at that point is that you're no longer losing one-score games. Vandy gets another big-time win in the Clark Lee era, and all but confirms that the SEC is going to be an absolute shit show for the entire run of the season. Unless you're Kentucky, you're just shit. In the age of 2025, where both of these teams' moments in the spotlight have been like a fart in the wind, they need something to feel good about. Last year we were blessed with a phenomenal matchup between these two squads, and the one this season didn't disappoint either. Two teams slinging the football on each other in a classic chaos air raid shootout, on NBC no less. While losing Castellanos has obviously been a blow for Bill O'Brien and company, having a guy like Dillard Longergan in the pocket who put up almost 400 yards on the Spartan defense tells us the statement that they don't miss him as much as we thought. In a shocking turn of events, Aiden Childs actually had a great consistent day passing the football. No boneheaded picks or bad reads, he just locked in and balled out. With a guy like Nick Marsh on the core, it was long overdue for Jonathan Smith to let Aiden Childs just sling the ball. The game was an absolute spectacle between two teams desperate not to lose and playing to win. Once the fourth quarter hit, both weapons on the field started to get sloppy in the pocket, and the only way that could end is with another edition of chaos overtime. Unfortunately for the road team, 4 hours under the heat of the Spartan crowd proved to be just too much for Lonergan to handle, making his first road start no less. The missed two-point conversion that happened in the double overtime set up Michigan State for the final punch of death.
Play action. Outside for the win. Got it. Amari Kelly sends the Spartans to 2-0.
Funny that the Spartans found a quarterback without even trying while Michigan is still searching. A big win for them like this propels them forward in conference play coming up. At the bare minimum, they also got vengeance for the previous season. Is it too much to ask College and Boston Torture to just stay consistent for 1 week? Either the offense is unusable or the defense is. Try to bring some sort of life back from both next week and maybe you'll finish in the top 5 for Tank Conference. I'm not going to force you to listen to that whole thing again, because honestly, this is just getting sad. Don't get me wrong, I'm still getting a kick out of this, but there's still a part of me that has some sympathy for the situation Nico has found himself in. He was getting paid $2 million at a prestigious university, and he, and now by extension his family, threw that away for basically transferring to the Guangdong Tigers for a bag of chips. His dad made such a big fuss about getting talent around him, and then proceeded to go to a place with no talent at all. So here we are again, watching him humiliate himself around said no talent against the Minister of Development himself. Dan Mullen. Ironically, he might be the most talented individual on the team, as he has little blocking, nobody to throw to, and a defense that sometimes disappears for entire quarters. This is the only trade in history where both sides got the Trojan horse. UCLA gets a money-hungry diva as their quarterback, and Nico gets highlight moments like these.
2nd and 10. They bring 4. Nico's throw, it's batted up, and it's picked, and UNLV has it!
You may cost $8 million for moves like these, but I classify it as priceless. As if it wasn't obvious already, Stanford is completely dead. I don't mean that in a metaphorical sense either. They've quite literally given up playing the game of football. They serve as a powerful reminder to Wake Forest and the previously discussed UCLA that could always be far worse. It's funny to me how Andrew Luck could be running the whole show, and yet somehow the Trees don't even have an actual quarterback. How Oregon State managed to go 8-4 with Ben Golberson in action is a mystery that even stumps Sherlock Holmes. The Peay announcer had to repeatedly mention that he was still in the game. Not because of injuries, but rather he was so fucking terrible that it was considered a coaching error to even let him play. The entire team is a prop for show and considered abuse for fans to even spectate this madness. Frank Reich does realize he can't actually tank for 5-star recruits, right? If there are any 2-star recruits that want to play after seeing this shit, I'd call them masochistic right away. BYU dominated the trenches the entire game and never had the game get out of their own hands, but yet the fan base is still pissed off because they consider it a lackluster performance to win by 24. And this is a Retzlaff-less BYU we're talking about. It didn't even matter who they had in the pocket because their opposition was busy doing nothing at all. I'm still confident in my take that by 2026 or 2027, we'll be seeing Andrew Luck on the sideline calling plays. There's no way Reich sticks around for half the season the way this is going. The only thing I know from this performance is that 3-9 and being a part of the ACC is in fact a blessing. You deserve to be locked up in the ESPN Plus broadcast booth for the rest of the season. That's all for this week, folks. Come back next week for more unexplainable chaos and college football tomfoolery. Here's a look at my top 25 heading into week 3. We already have some massive drop-offs and we just got started. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it unfold and finding out who is worthy of taking away Ryan Day's moment in the spotlight. Hell, it might be Ryan Day again at this rate. So until next time, God bless and power to Tardaria.
And that's kicked. But going to be fielded on the run by Fresno State. There is a flag down for the kicking of the football, but it's run back into the end zone. Plus this
entire part has been a disaster.
Kicking team number 38. That penalty is declined.
Yeah.
The result of the play is a touchdown.
That is, well, on a football, I've never seen this.
I mean, the ball is spinning incredibly hard to the right side of him. Still, it's right at his hip.